I know you all know about the flying Urayuli, but have you ever seen, ever even fathomed the golden Ijiraq? Because today, I want to take a look at Inscryption's most mysterious card, and some of its most obscure and interesting interactions. But first, just to make sure we're all on the same page in case somebody doesn't know, I'll briefly explain what the Ijiraq normally does, so that then we can look at what it doesn't normally do. So the Ijiraq is an unlockable rare card in Kaycee's mod. When selecting a rare card, the Ijiraq will appear as another random rare card with red eyes and a question mark at the end of its name. This is because the Ijiraq's special ability allows it to disguise itself as a random card in your deck. And so in battles, the way this works is you won't actually know when you've drawn the Ijiraq card until you play it, because then it will transform back into its true form, which is a 4 attack and 1 health card with the repulsive sigil. Now the Ijiraq takes on some qualities of the card that it copies, for example the cost of the card, and therefore it's best used in a deck with many low-cost cards. It also takes any sigils that the card had, so if any such sigil would trigger upon being summoned, then they will work as well before the Ijiraq turns into its normal form. For example, here I have an Ijiraq disguising itself as the Field Mice card, which means I'm going to have to pay 2 blood in order to summon the card, and then also since it has the Fecundity sigil, which triggers when the card is summoned, it will still use that sigil before transforming into the Ijiraq's true form, and then place another Field Mice card in my hand. And note that this is a regular Field Mice card, not another copy of Ijiraq. So there's a lot of variety to how the Ijiraq card can work. However, you can't really control it because it just picks a random card to disguise itself as. Another thing about the Ijiraq is that it can't really be used like a normal card in certain events. For example, here at the Bone Lord event, you can see that the Ijiraq is this card between the Hodag and the Alpha, because whenever I refresh the cards here, the card keeps changing, whereas the rest stay the same. So this here is the Ijiraq, and when I go ahead and try to sacrifice it to the Bone Lord, afterwards, when I look at my deck, I still have the Ijiraq in my deck. Instead, the Bone Lord took the Rat King, which is the card that Ijiraq had disguised itself as. Rather than being able to sacrifice or buff the Ijiraq in any way at events, instead it affects the card that Ijiraq is pretending to be. And this is where we find our first unique interaction, because Ijiraq is not the only card that isn't allowed to be buffed at specifically the Campfire event under normal circumstances. Pelt cards and also cards with unique attack sigils such as Ant cards cannot be buffed at Campfire attack buffs, and Pelts also cannot be buffed at Campfire health buffs either. If you have those in your deck, they just don't appear as options when you're at the Campfire event. However, if you have an Ijiraq in your deck, then the Ijiraq may disguise itself as one of these cards while you're at the Campfire event. So if Ijiraq disguises itself as one of those such cards, then you can put it up to the fire and you can buff it as well. Now, when it comes to the attack sigils, it won't show the number increase at all, but it will keep those buffs. For example, this Worker Ant here has 3 attack, even though it's the only ant on the field, and that's because one of those points is from its Ant attack sigil, and the other 2 are because I buffed it at the Campfire. Another thing you can do with this interaction is use it to get rid of cards that normally would not show up as options at the Campfire event. So if you have a Pelt or an Ant in your deck that you want to get rid of, or at least try to get rid of at the Campfire event, then you can do that as long as you have an Ijiraq. The Ijiraq is always copying a random card in your deck. However, if it just so happens to be the last card in your deck on the very bottom, then there's nothing left in your deck for it to copy. So what happens then? Well, as you see here, I just drew a squirrel from the main deck, which under normal circumstances is completely impossible. You can never really have a squirrel in the main deck. However, if Ijiraq is the only card left in your deck, it has nothing else to copy, and so it'll become a squirrel. And this also happens if your squirrel deck is empty as well. Now this is actually kind of a good interaction since Squirrel is costless. You can play it for free, which means you can play the Ijiraq for free, essentially. So, pretty interesting and also not that bad. So as for the golden Ijiraq, essentially there's a very specific interaction with the golden pelt card, and that's that if the Ijiraq decides to disguise itself as the golden pelt, when you play the golden pelt, it'll transform into the Ijiraq, but it'll keep the special color of the golden pelt card. So you'll end up with this golden Ijiraq. There's nothing else special to it, really. It just looks cool. As you can see here, it also appears to have 0 attack. But again, that's just because pelts are not really supposed to have attack. But you can still buff their attack with the Ijiraq interaction at campfires. And also, the golden Ijiraq here will still attack. It still has its 4 attack, it just looks like it has no attack. And also, while it's fighting the moon here, I should also mention how the Ijiraq pretty much just 1v1s the moon or the limoncello, because since it has the repulsive sigil, they can't attack the Ijiraq, and since you control Ijiraq, they can't attack you either. So yeah, if you have an Ijiraq against one of the final bosses, you just automatically win, so that's pretty cool. And then lastly, the probably most broken interaction here is the fact that Ijiraq is not allowed to be searched. If you have the Magpie's Glass item or the Magpie's Sigil, the Hoarder Sigil, you're not actually able to search Ijiraq. However, you can still see it when you look at your deck, and you can still select it. So how does that work exactly? Well, as you can see here, I showed off the cards that are in my deck before the battle. And then when I summon this Magpie, which also has the Dam Builder Sigil, so I can search multiple cards at once, already there's another copy of this same Magpie in the deck, which I've only got one of those, so that has to be the Ijiraq, right? After that, however, the second search, we have an additional Cuckoo, so I grabbed that as well. Turns out that was the normal Cuckoo, so on the third search we got, again, a second Cuckoo, which I did not have in my deck before this battle. And so therefore that has to be the Ijiraq. However, when I summon these Cuckoos, they're both just normal Cuckoos. Neither of them are the Ijiraq. And later on when we summon this Magpie as well, that is also just a normal Magpie. It does not transform into the Ijiraq either. And this is again because Ijiraq is not allowed to be searched, so instead it just duplicates cards. So if you have a way to search infinitely, like an unkillable Magpie or something like that, some kind of combo, then you can just keep duplicating cards. Now you don't get to choose what it duplicates, because again, it just depends on whatever random card Ijiraq decides to disguise itself as. But yeah, it just clones cards in your deck. They don't stay, of course, it's just for that battle. But that's a really weird interaction. The game was like, nope. Can't search it, here's a copy of your card instead. And so those are some of the cool, wacky interactions with Ijiraq. Let me know what you think in the comments, maybe which one is your favorite. And that's all I've got for now. I'll see you next time.